Welcome to Russia, home to a people with a rich history of oppression and living under tyrannical rule.
Russia is located on two continents, Europe and Asia. It is the world's largest country with an area of 17,075,400 kilometers square. It borders China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Belarus, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, the Arctic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. The population of Russia is mostly comprised of Slavic peoples, but can be broken down into demographics of Russians, Tatars, Ukrainians, Bashkir, Shkuvash, and other specific.
The Russian people started making a society around the 9th century. It was known as the Kievan Rus and was very similar in nature to a kingdom. It was quite large and spread from the areas around Moscow to the areas around modern-day Kiev. Like many kingdoms, there's a hierarchy, and after some power disputes, the Grand Duchy of Moscow rose to be the controlling power of the region. The Grand Duchy of Moscow began annexing neighboring cities, which were freed, and the Golden Horde began to disintegrate. Russia then became a Tsardom in 1547 under Ivan IV, referred to as Ivan the Terrible. The Tsardom evolved into a true empire in 1721 under Peter the Great. However, the empire collapsed in 1917 when the Bolsheviks revolution under Vladimir Lenin took power. Russia was then turned into a communist state and was joined with its nearby states to become a world power known as the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Due to economic and social issues which arose under the USSR, the Soviet Union was dissolved and Russia became a federal republic in 1991, as it remains today. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines totalitarianism as the political concept that the citizens should be totally subject to an absolute state authority. The Russian people have essentially lived under this type of government for hundreds of years. From the time of the Kievan Rus until the fall of the Russian Empire, Russia was ruled by kings with near absolute authority. These rulers were declared czars of all Russians, implying that they had divine right to rule over not only the lands, but those who occupied them, or were Russian by birth. From the fall of the empire till the fall of the Soviet Union, the premier of the Communist Party and his cabinet had total control over all these aspects, from economic to social, and of the lives of the Russian people.
Ivan the Terrible is one of the most well-known Russian totalitarian leaders. He was known for his unstable mental health, which caused him to make rash decisions. In a rage, he even killed his son and heir to the throne. His mental state was also plagued with paranoia. He claimed at one point that the clergy and the aristocratic nobles were destroying the empire and declared he would only return to the throne if he was given absolute authority, which was given. With this absolute power, he created the massacre of Novgorod. The boyar city of Novgorod was attacked by the private army of Ivan, known as the Uperniki, and between 12,000 and 60,000 Russians were killed. Once he had the Russian people under the control of fear, he began to expand the empire. He conquered lands to all sides, including Siberia.
Tsar Nicholas II was the last Russian monarch to hold the throne. He was known as Bloody Nicholas due to all the bloodshed that occurred under his rule. To maintain power, he would often put down rebellions and protests at the end of a musket or saber. Examples of this include the repression of the 1905 Revolution, Bloody Sunday, and the pogroms. The 1905 revolution occurred due to poor government control over industry, which led to poor working conditions. The protesters were average citizens from workers to military personnel. Rather than hearing these people out, Tsar Nicholas executed 14,000 people and imprisoned an additional 75,000. Bloody Sunday was a repression of a peaceful protest, which led to 1,000 deaths. The pogroms was a legal mob that was allowed by Tsar Nicholas to attack Jews. The exact number of deaths is unknown due to the informality of the proceedings, but is estimated to be in the thousands.
Vladimir Lenin was the leader of the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution in the early 20th century, which later became the Communist Party in Russia. Lenin had been a part of the 1905 Russian Revolution, which caused him to go into exile in Switzerland when the revolution had failed. In 1917, Lenin returned to Russia and led the Bolsheviks in a revolution against the Tsars, which ultimately succeeded. By 1922, Lenin became the premier of the Soviet Union and established a communist government based off of Marxist principles. He would serve as premier until his death on January 21, 1924. During his life, Lenin was able to overthrow the Russian royal family, which had ruled Russia for centuries through the line of the Tsars. Many of Lenin's admirers, even today, view Lenin as a hero amongst the working class for bringing socialism and socio-economic equality amongst the working class known as the proletariat.
Joseph Stalin was born December 18, 1878 in present-day Georgia and eventually became the premier of the Soviet Union after Lenin's death in 1924. Stalin was known for many things during his regime. First, Stalin was able to lead the Soviet Union through World War II to victory against the Nazi Germany from 1941 to 1945. Second, Stalin was unafraid to terminate any opposition against him, which later led to many purges of his government officials, even if they were remotely suspected of opposing Stalin's claim on the power. Third, Stalin had killed and displaced millions of people within the Soviet Union to keep the people in line as he continued to spread the Soviet Union's sphere of influence around the globe by spreading communism. Lastly, Stalin was prepared to intern all Jewish nationals in new, largely built labor camps, but was unable to act on this due to his death in 1953. After Stalin had died, his successors began a period of de-Stalinization to undo the acts that many believed to have been wrong. Following the Second World War, Joseph Stalin sought to unite the Soviet people under his totalitarian rule. Once he had fully united the people, both ideologically and physically, he then intended to spread the influence of communism outwards towards a single global community under his control. Stalin attempted to unite his people through using as much force as possible to instill a sense of fear and through propaganda. Propaganda portrayed the outside capitalist world as being worse off than the Soviets. He would also blame the Western powers for terrible things that would happen to the Soviet people. When this propaganda didn't work, the peasants would rebel and form little groups of nationalist communities within their respective countries. When this would happen, Stalin would attempt to stomp this out by terrorizing these people. These acts include the Holodomor and the Gulag prison camps.
The Holodomor was a man-made famine imposed by the Soviet government on the peoples of Ukraine between 1932 and 1933. Many modern countries argue that the Holodomor was genocide, as it was meant to oppress a rise in Ukrainian nationalism. This nationalism would threaten the Russian-dominated government of the Soviet Union. During its duration, nearly 7 million Ukrainians were starved to death, even though foreign countries offered aid. The Soviet premier, Joseph Stalin, made it clear that he would not accept foreign aid and would rather deal with the issue in-house. This led to many further suspicions that this event was premeditated and not due to an economic change caused by a rapid industrialization and the policies of Joseph Stalin's collectivism of the Soviet Union. This massive loss in population led to a decline in Ukrainian nationalism and effectively allowed a return to stability within the Soviet Union, helping to ensure Stalin's overall goal of domination over other peoples.
Life in a gulag was harsh. Prisoners were sent to gulags across Russia for a variety of reasons as perceived by Joseph Stalin. In the camps, the prisoners fought for survival by working in order for them to get enough food day after day for security and for all of life's necessities. If a prisoner was lucky enough to survive the cold, hunger, and their fellow inmates, then they had to face the brutal treatment from the prison guards. Prisoners had to create their own tools such as spoons and bowls as to work for every day ounce of food because the amount of work that they complete for the day depends on how much they get to eat for the day, which could mean life or death for many. In order for you to survive in the gulag, you had to think about you and only you and invent different ways or means in order for you to survive.
Within one of these camps was a man named Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Solzhenitsyn was born in Kilovsky on December 11, 1918, and later served in the Red Army as a captain of artillery during World War II. After the war, Solzhenitsyn was thrown into a labor camp in Kazakhstan after making a comment about Stalin in a negative way in a letter to a friend. After serving his term, Solzhenitsyn began writing and published his first novel, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, that was banned in 1962 by Nikita Khrushchev. Solzhenitsyn wrote many other novels, and many of which were also banned by Khrushchev, eventually forcing Solzhenitsyn into exile, where he went to Vermont until 1994, when Mikhail Gorbachev restored his citizenship and unbanned his novels. The writings of Solzhenitsyn, along with his winning of a Nobel Prize, only muddied the waters of the Soviet Union. His novels brought to light the terrorizing policies that the government of the Soviet Union used against its own people. It showed the West just what a totalitarian communist regime could do. Solzhenitsyn was widely accepted upon his return to Russia in 1994, where people from Siberia all the way to Moscow greeted him and welcomed him back to his native land. Even President Yeltsin welcomed Solzhenitsyn back to Russia, and in 1997, the Solzhenitsyn Prize for Russian Writing was made in his honor. By the time Solzhenitsyn had died in 2008, Vladimir Putin and Gorbachev mentioned how, even though his journey was long and hard, he would be remembered in Russian history as one of the greatest writers in Russian literature. This is in stark contrast to how Stalin is viewed by most Russians in modern time. While there are a few Russians who idolize Stalin for his strong nationalism and his bringing the Soviet Union to the world stage, many hate him for the millions of people he killed in his aim for greater and greater power. Examples of these maniacal aims can be seen in Solzhenitsyn's book, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich.
The novel One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, follows a typical day of Ivan in a Soviet work camp. Ivan was a Soviet soldier who served his country faithfully. Ivan was captured by German soldiers but managed to escape. When he returned home, he was met with accusations of being a spy and was thrown into a Soviet labor camp to serve a 10-year sentence. The camp that he was assigned to was located in Siberia, a very cold place to be. Every day seems to be colder than the day before. Many of the prisoners that are thrown into the prison are there for ridiculous reasons. One prisoner, Alyoshka, was thrown into the labor camp just for being a Baptist. Ivan is placed in the gang 104, which consists of prisoners Tyurin, Tsitser, and Fayukov. Ivan and the rest of gang 104 try everything in their power to keep warm, which consisted mainly of working. Every prisoner at the Gulag was forced to work at their assigned task, and if they did not perform their work properly, they would be punished. One of the most severe punishments the camp had to offer was the hole. The hole is a solitary confinement cell where prisoners are left to starve and freeze for a few days. Throughout the day, the prisoners have to go through inspections and body counts. The guards make sure that all the prisoners are accounted for and that they do not have any contraband on them. These contraband items can include a piece of bread, civilian clothes, or even a weapon. The only way for anyone to survive in the camp is to work together. Ivan realizes this and does his best to pull his weight and try to help out everyone to the best of his ability. Ivan and Gang 104 are assigned to build walls. All day the gang slaves away and builds the wall to the best of their ability. All of the prisoners get 3 meals a day, but the meals are not that hearty and they do not get much. The camp has a very limited supply of food, so all the prisoners remain hungry throughout the day. Ivan takes each day one at a time and relies on the work and comradeship of his fellow Gang 104 prisoners.